Everybody, this is Dr. Dana Gibbs, and we are live tonight. Welcome to the Tuesday Live. I'm your host, Dr. Dana Gibbs. I am uh, local to the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I'm a thyroid and hormone expert, and today we are going to be discussing part 4 of, part 4 of 4 parts about 2 hormones that you can't really afford to ignore that are even more important than thyroid. And it looks like one of my channels is having trouble streaming, but we're just going to ignore that for a while and go right on. So last time we talked about is that cortisol and insulin, which are 2 hormones that are when they are too high because of our stress, can really damage our health. And so we talked particularly about some solutions with regards to sleep and with regards to different ideas about how you can modify your nutrition to control those 2 things. And that turned into quite a long discussion, and there is more to be said on that subject, but that's not why we're here tonight. So I want to talk about 2 more ways that you can lower your stress and actually lower your insulin levels as a result and lower your cortisol as a result. And the first one of those is movement. And when I say movement, I'm talking about exercise, of course, but really any kind of movement that gets your body moving. So there are several kinds that are kind of formal exercise, like weight bearing exercise, weight training, where you're working hard to build muscle mass and strength. And then there's high intensity interval training, where you do 20 seconds of all out exercise and then you wait for a few minutes, and then you do 20 seconds of all out exercise and then you wait for a few minutes. And there are actually some studies that show that 20 seconds 3 times and then doing that 3 times a week can really make a huge difference in your capacity to burn sugar without insulin. And so those are the 2 that I really focus on, and not so much cardio. And the reason why I pick on cardio is because a lot of people think they need heavy cardio in order to lose weight. And truth of the matter is, especially if you're trying to lose weight, that doing a lot of cardio puts your body right into that fight or flight response that we have been talking about for the last several weeks. And when you go into fight or flight, it raises your cortisol, it raises your insulin, and then guess what? Your body will not let go of the fat that you're actually trying to burn. So it's not a great thing. And that's why I really prefer these really short bursts of intense exercise followed by a lot of rest, and then strength training with adequate recovery periods in between. And if you're over 50, that probably means a couple of days between weight training session. It also means high weights, low reps. And if you do that, what you'll find is that you don't get that intense soreness that comes from a lot of high reps. And if you go up to a weight that you can barely lift and you do that, 5 to 10 reps, and you do it twice a week, you're going to build muscle. That's kind of how that works. But anyway, so the other great thing about weight training, particularly if you're not using a machine, but you're using, for example, barbells, is that you're doing exercise that requires balance, which activates not just muscles, but it activates a lot of different primitive parts of your brain that helps you improve your balance, besides the fact that it's promoting the building of bone mass and enhancing longevity. So beyond those 2 kinds of formal exercise, there are multiple benefits of exercise, like even something really simple like walking in nature. Now, you're walking on a treadmill, you're watching TV, you're multitasking while you're doing that. That is probably not the greatest thing to help lower your cortisol and lower your insulin. But walking in nature in a mindful way, where you are looking at the scenery, appreciating the blue sky or the wind on your face or the smells or the sounds of the birds, those kind of things actually really do count as mindfulness and reduces stress. Um, there are other kinds that are really helpful of movement, and I'm thinking about things like dance, where you're partner dancing, where you're having to focus intently on what you're doing. You're feeling the music, you're doing it in community with other people, which decreases social, it improves cooperation skills, and it provides the helpful hormones dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin. And then there are other stuff besides dance, like basketball or other team sports where you're really coordinated, but you're not working to the point of exhaustion. Tennis, rock climbing, Tai Chi, yoga, and even CrossFit, where, in my opinion, the community is actually the best benefit of CrossFit. Um, but even just 30 minutes 3 times a week can really be extremely helpful. Um, and really not hours of intense cardio per day. Really counterproductive if you're trying to lose weight. Um, and one of the interesting things that you get from a regular exercise or a regular movement practice is a sense of accomplishment and a change of your mindset to where you're thinking to yourself, I am a person who works out. I'm a person who commits and does what I say I'm going to do. Anyway, so that's movement, and movement of all kinds is really super helpful. Now, if you have a lot of pain, you could do something like water aerobics or just gentle swimming, and still get benefit from bringing your brain off of the problems that you're dealing with and into a single-minded focus on what I'm doing right now. And that's a really nice segue into mindfulness, because that's actually how mindfulness lowers your stress as well. So all of these different techniques that I'm talking about require deliberate practice. And these are, they're bandied about and called self-care. Going to the spa, getting a massage, those are also called self-care, but they're not really self-care unless you are disconnecting your brain from the future and from the past and focusing on the sensations of what you're doing right now. So breathing exercises, meditation, um, mindful eating. I already talked about mindful walking, mindful conversation, where you're really paying attention to the person that you're speaking to and really focusing on being right there at the moment and not trying to solve their problem in your head, just listening intently to what they are saying to you. And then prayer and other gratitude practices are wonderful for bringing you into the present and getting you into this appreciative abundance mindset. I am grateful for what I have rather than I am anxious about what I don't have. Those are really great things. Um, and that's exactly, I think, one of the ways that prayer really works. And so then there are other ones. There's something that's completely and totally secular called positive intelligence. And this is a psychological practice that was started by a gentleman named Shirzad Shamin. And he gives his program away to hundreds of people every year. And you can just go on the internet and look up positive intelligence. And it's very, very simple practices like, I am going to stop what I am doing for 30 seconds and feel my toes in my shoes. I'm going to feel and notice the ridges in my fingernails, in the tips of my fingers. I'm going to feel the breath going in and out of my body. I'm going to think about the child that I was and appreciate that child for the resilient being that it was, he or she was. Um, anyway, so there is also more formal therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy or internal family systems. And then there's a practice that's very simply called having a why, which means you keep in the forefront of your mind your motivation for doing what it is that you do every day. And I'm not talking about money, I'm talking about time with your family, time with people who feel comfortable for you to be around. Just whatever floats your boat, if it's teaching or if it's helping people feel better or whatever. Your why is one of the most powerful techniques that you can use, keeping that in your mind for overcoming stress. And all of these techniques that I'm talking about require deliberate and daily practice, and they work very simply by pulling us out of either the negative past, or what we've used as negative in the past, or the uncertain future, and into the present moment. Um, and even 6 minutes twice a day of some kind of meditation practice has really been shown to rewire your brain in a way, in positive ways, that helps reduce cortisol and improve serotonin and dopamine in your brain. And then there are other techniques that are helpful. So, for example, having somebody else help us examine our thoughts and look for the fallacies in our thinking in a very gentle and non self critical way, or a non critical way. For example, there's this concept that feeling emotions like resentment or helplessness or those are the only ones I can think of right now, but there's tons of them, where it's caused in our mind, caused by something else. When we're being disrespected, for example, that can be a strident victim, basically, of somebody else controlling us or victimizing us. But this idea that victims have power, or that being a victim gives you power, is really a fallacy, because what being a victim does is gives your power away, your personal power to recover and heal, away to whoever you're ascribing these negative feelings to. And you can't control how another person thinks or reacts. And as a matter of fact, for example, use the example. Let's use the example of you're cut off in traffic. Well, that person who cut you off in traffic probably didn't even see you, didn't know you were there. They're just going on down the road doing the thing. But if you let that fact that they did that pull you out of your happy mindset that you happen to be in as you're going to wherever you're going, and get into this, oh, I hate them, they did this to me, oh my God. It's just like, let it go, let it go. Because bringing that person victimized me mindset into you pulls in cortisol in a huge way. And another one is this idea that we're only valuable as human beings if we're achieving something, or if we have a certain thing, or if we have power. So there are so many writers, amazing writers, that delve into the world of using the power of your mind to overcome your circumstances, even really horrific circumstances, like Viktor Frankl, who's a Holocaust survivor, Frankl, an amazing author and book to read that he wrote. Nelson Mandela is a prolific writer, or was a prolific writer, and endured horrific circumstances, but walked away and said, you know what, if I stay angry at those people who imprisoned me, I'm giving my power to them. So that's exactly it. And here's one other thing. because since for most of us, our survival is really not actually threatened by starvation or exile or death or imprisonment, our default action in response to those stress emotions, which are actually our primitive brains trying to keep us from danger, are actually counterproductive. And so then we don't take a risk. We don't risk innovation. We don't risk achievement. We don't risk rejection. We don't risk failure, which are actually necessary to get ahead in the modern world. So your brain's motto, your primitive brain's motto would be like, never try, never fail. But the truth is, when you really examine it, if you never try, you never succeed. So super, super important to keep that in mind. So to get away from that, we can use a concept called metacognition. And metacognition is the ability to deliberately examine our own thoughts and deliberately change how we think about the situations through training, even those situations that are actually life-threatening. For example, surgeons and pilots are trained, and we know how to do this when dangerous or unexpected situations arise. We don't accept our default disaster thinking, catastrophizing, or dwelling on the what ifs. We use our checklist or our training to focus our minds and get the emergency taken care of. We're cool under pressure, for example. If you think back to the Miracle on the Hudson, for example, Sully said when he was praised and thanked for saving those people, he was bewildered and he said, I was just doing my job. That was what he was trained to do. But it's how we think the rest of the time that tends to get us really in trouble. So for many of us, habitual ways of thought can lead to those 5 cortisol releasing emotions. Examples, things like catastrophizing or all or nothing thinking or rumination or overthinking, procrastination, this mindset of scarcity of I don't have enough, there's never enough, I'm not enough, about the situations that arise in your daily life, about your interactions with others. For some of us, very early life circumstances led to survival ways of thinking that tend to persist into adulthood and are actually hindrances to our joy and our mental clarity and our peace. And these are habits, they're learned behaviors, meaning you can unlearn them. And this is actually a pretty new concept to me because it was not until the last few years that I learned that the mean critic in my own head was not telling the truth, with thoughts like, you suck, nobody likes you, you're lazy, you're nothing. If you say no to what everyone else wants, then nobody's going to like you. I also learned that the power behind journaling your thoughts out on paper and then having a coach who sees me the way other people see me and not the way I tend to see myself, which is in all those negative ways, can suggest an alternative viewpoint that can really totally turn your mindset around and see how your mindset is causing you stress, and the fact that you can just turn that around and replace it with different thoughts. And that's the idea behind a lot of life coaching. But it allows the replacement of those negative emotions with ones like curiosity, trust, joy, love, excitement, to name a few, that trigger the release of those healthier hormones, the neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, and oxytocin. All right, last thing we're going to talk about is that if you are really stressed out and you're really depleted and you're really worried about, okay, I've got super high cortisol and I can tell my insulin is high because I have a lot of those symptoms that we mentioned last week when we were talking about this. In addition to the 4 areas of focus that I talked about, the sleep, the diet, the mindset, and the movement, there are hormone supplements that you can use. And these are not instead of, they're in addition to. When you take hormones and supplements, they really work best if they're taken at the right times, in the right dose, in the right balance, and from the right manufacturer for that matter. And the right supplements really can improve and stabilize your hormone production. But if adding hormones is something you think you need, you probably need to get a doctor to help you, somebody who is familiar with integrative medicine, so that they can combine the techniques of Western medicine and all of this other stuff that I've been talking about in order to give you maximum benefit, um, and really help you out with your energy levels and with the blood sugar and all the other stuff that we talked about the other day. Um, so, a few last lessons that that I learned as I was on my journey to write this talk, because it is a big talk that I give at a seminar, that I broke up into 4 what turns out to be very long chunks, is that first of all, we can be 100% in control of how we react to what life throws at us. So changes in how we think reduce our stress level, which is critical for maintaining health. Attention to proper diet and nutrition can completely reverse career and life quality destroying insulin related medical conditions before they get worse. Physical activity of the correct type is really key for optimizing stress and sleep and mindset. And adequate and regular sleep habits are foundational for controlling stress levels, and without which many lifestyle changes will really have little effect. So sleep is really the foundation. Anyway, if any of this resonates with you and you are looking for a physician to do more than just hand you a pill, you can find me at www.danagibbsmd.com. I practice in Texas and Iowa. And I hope this was useful and maybe even a little bit fun or informative. And I will talk to you again next week. All right. Thanks for listening. Bye bye.